The narcissist walks through life as though untouchable, wearing a mask of confidence and control. But what they cannot control is what happens when the lights go out and their performance ends. At night, when the world is silent and there is no one left to manipulate, they are left alone with the truth they cannot outrun. This is when their torment begins. Their sleep is no longer peaceful. It is restless, filled with dark dreams and images that echo back the cruelty they inflicted on others. These nightmares are not just random fragments of imagination, but the result of a conscience they have tried to bury. They may project strength and indifference during the day, but in the stillness of night, their soul reveals the truth. The very things they thought they got away with come back in distorted, haunting forms, reminding them that no mask can protect them in their sleep. The narcissist is haunted because they touched something sacred when they tried to harm you. They may not admit it, but deep down they know they crossed a line. Their nightmares are the reflection of every lie they told, every betrayal they committed, and every manipulative word they spoke. Their mind replays those moments in the form of shadows, monsters, and situations they cannot control, stripping them of the power they cling to so tightly in their waking hours. They fear being exposed, they fear being powerless, and they fear being forgotten, and their dreams reveal those fears in terrifying clarity. What they cannot confess in the daylight, they cannot escape in the darkness of night. The truth is, the narcissist does not sleep peacefully because their spirit knows they are guilty. They may never say it, they may continue to play their role in front of others, but their subconscious betrays them. Their dreams drag them into the very prison they created for others. They once laughed at your tears, yet in the night they cry in silence, not because of empathy, but because their own conscience is tormenting them. The person who thought they could break you is now being broken within themselves. They toss and turn, sweating and restless, because their guilt has taken on a life of its own. Their nightmares remind them that they cannot outrun the truth. It is in those long nights that their mind replays what they tried to silence. They remember the manipulation, the harsh words, the betrayal, and the way they took advantage of your kindness. In the moment, they justified it. They told themselves they were right, that you were the problem, that you deserved it. But when night falls, there are no lies convincing enough to protect them from reality. The faces of those they hurt, the weight of the damage they caused, and the memory of your strength rise up against them in dream after dream. They wake up shaken, terrified, and restless, trying to brush it off. But deep down, they know those nightmares are not ordinary. They are warnings, reminders, and judgments that they cannot escape. The narcissist is terrified of facing themselves, and that is why their nights are so restless. They dread sleep because they know what awaits them. They may try to mask it with distractions, staying up late, drowning themselves in noise, clinging to others for validation. But when they close their eyes, they are confronted with the one person they cannot manipulate: themselves. Every nightmare becomes a courtroom, where the evidence of their actions is presented without mercy. Their charm does not work there. Their lies hold no power, and their manipulations collapse. In those dreams, they are stripped of control, left naked before the truth, and it terrifies them. The torment is deep because they know they cannot hide forever. Even though they may never admit it, they sense that those nightmares are a glimpse of something greater. They know they are not just battling their own guilt, but facing the anger of God Himself. The child they tried to break is the one God is now protecting, and their subconscious feels the weight of that divine fury. This is why their dreams are so intense, why they wake up shaken and unsettled, because what they tried to bury has been brought into the light of God's judgment. They thought they were powerful, but in the night, their fears expose just how fragile they really are. The narcissist often believes that as long as they keep up appearances during the day, they are safe. They imagine that if no one knows the truth, then there is no price to pay. But what they fail to realize is that judgment does not always arrive in the open for all to see. It often begins in the quiet, hidden hours of the night. When their head touches the pillow and the performance ends, the real courtroom begins. Their sleep is invaded, not by peace, but by visions, dreams, and restless thoughts that serve as reminders that God has not overlooked what they have done. The very place that should bring them rest becomes a battlefield of the mind, and every night they are confronted with the evidence of their wrongdoing. They cannot run, they cannot argue, and they cannot escape because the judge is not man, it is God himself. They close their eyes. The walls they built to protect themselves crumble. In the dark, they are not the charming actor, not the confident manipulator, not the untouchable figure they pretend to be. In their dreams, they are stripped of their mask, exposed for who they really are, and this is where judgment begins. Night after night, they replay the lies they told, the harm they caused, and the people they hurt. They may try to rationalize it in the daylight, but in their sleep, those excuses vanish. Their subconscious knows the truth, and God presses that truth upon them until it spills into their nightmares. They may never confess it, but they feel it every time their heart races at 3 a.m, every time they wake up in a sweat, every time their rest is stolen by shadows they cannot explain. The nightmares themselves are not random. They are divine interruptions. God uses them as reminders that there is no escape from accountability. It is His way of showing them that the world may be fooled, but heaven never is. Every secret manipulation, every false word, every betrayal that they thought was hidden has been recorded, and the silence of the night is the perfect stage for that record to be played back to them. In those moments, they sense the weight of something greater than guilt. It is conviction. They feel the heaviness of being caught, even when no one else is accusing them. They experience the consequences of judgment in the shadows of their own mind. Narcissists dread the night. They keep themselves busy with distractions. They cling to people. They drown themselves in noise because silence terrifies them. Silence exposes them to their own thoughts, and their own thoughts echo with the judgment of God. When the world is watching, they may appear powerful, confident, and untouchable, but when they are alone, they are powerless against the conscience God stirs within them. Their charm cannot silence the voice of conviction, and their lies hold no power against the truth that chases them in their sleep. They can manipulate others, but they cannot manipulate the Almighty. The judgment that begins in their dreams is not simply punishment. It is a warning. God is patient, but He is also just, and He often begins His process of justice by confronting the guilty in the one place they cannot escape, their own mind. Their nightmares are not accidents, but messages. They show them glimpses of what they've done, of what is to come, and of the pain they thought would never return to them. In the night, God places a mirror before them, forcing them to face the reflection they hide from others. They may wake up shaken, dismiss it, and carry on with their arrogance, but when they return to sleep, the same haunting visions reappear. Judgment keeps pursuing them, refusing to let them rest until they acknowledge the truth. They are haunted, you are healing. While they toss in fear, you sleep in peace because you know the one who protects you. The same God who allows them to be tormented in their dreams is the same God who guards your rest. The difference between their nights and yours is the difference between guilt and innocence, between manipulation and truth, between arrogance and humility. They feel the weight of judgment in the dark because they chose cruelty, while you experience peace in the dark because you chose faith. God is furious with the way they treated you, and that fury manifests itself in the unrest of their soul. Their nightmares are evidence that divine justice has already begun. The narcissist set out to harm you. They believed it was just you they were fighting against. They thought they were manipulating a single person, breaking down a single heart, and controlling a single life. But the reality they never understood is that in targeting you, they were also targeting the God who protects you. Every word of deceit, every calculated act of cruelty, every attempt to humiliate you was not just directed at you. It was an offense against the one who created you, who loves you, and who has marked you as His own. And when someone wages war against one of God's children, they are not simply fighting flesh and blood, they are challenging heaven itself. The narcissist may convince themselves they are strong, but nobody wins when they stand against God. The arrogance of the narcissist blinds them to this truth. They think their charm and power can shield them from consequences. They see your kindness as weakness, your patience as foolishness, and your forgiveness as an open invitation to continue. They believe they are the puppet master and everyone else is just a piece on their board. But what they fail to realize is that their manipulations are not only seen by you, but by God, and every act of cruelty is recorded in heaven. They may escape human accountability for a season, but they can never escape divine justice. Every time they belittled you, they dishonored God. Every time they lied to you, they lied in the face of truth himself. Every time they tried to destroy your spirit, they were attempting to undo what God has built, and that is a battle they will always lose. God rises in defense of his children. The fight is no longer even. The narcissist may have convinced themselves they are in control, but when the creator of the universe steps in, their power crumbles. This is why they cannot find peace. This is why their nights are filled with terror. Their spirit knows they have crossed a line far greater than they realized. They know deep down they are not just running from you, they are running from God. Their nightmares serve as reminders of the one truth they wish they could ignore, that they are accountable not just to the person they hurt, but to the God who saw everything. Their arrogance is always temporary. They can only pretend for so long before the weight of judgment begins pressing on their lives. The narcissist often underestimates the quiet strength of those they hurt, not realizing that strength comes from a source they cannot touch. Your strength was never about you being unbreakable on your own. It was about God sustaining you. And when they attempted to destroy that, they weren't simply harming you, they were challenging God's authority. No one can tear down what he has built, and no one can silence the prayers of the righteous. The tears you cried, the pain you carried, the prayers you whispered, all of them rose to heaven, and God heard them. The narcissist may have dismissed them, but heaven did not. Their soul is unsettled. The very reason they wake up in fear is that God is reminding them of what they have done. They are not only facing their own guilt, but the fury of a God who does not take lightly the suffering of his children. When they attacked you, they were not just dealing with flesh and blood. They were standing in opposition to divine will. That is why their victories never last. That is why their confidence is short-lived. That is why their peace cannot be found. They are haunted because deep down they know they picked a fight they cannot win. They know they came against someone who is protected, someone who is chosen, someone who is shielded by a God who defends his own. You don't have to carry the burden of revenge. You don't have to exhaust yourself trying to make them pay, because they already are. The nightmares they face, the heaviness they feel, the unrest they cannot explain, all of it is the evidence that they touched the wrong one. You were never alone in the battle. You were backed by heaven. And when the narcissist turned their cruelty on you, they declared war on the God who holds your life in his hands. That is why they cannot sleep. That is why their spirit is restless. Because no matter how high they try to climb, they cannot rise above the one they tried to fight against. The narcissist once believed that your pain was their triumph, that your tears were their proof of control, and that your silence meant defeat. They assumed that breaking you down would be the end of your story, that once they left you drained, confused, and wounded, you would never find the strength to stand again. What they failed to realize is that every attempt to destroy you only pushed you closer to discovering the strength within yourself. While they thought you were falling apart, you were actually being rebuilt. While they thought you were drowning, you were learning how to breathe underwater. While they celebrated your lowest moments, God was preparing your greatest rise. This is why now, while they are tossing in their beds with nightmares, you are walking in a peace they cannot comprehend. The contrast between you and them could not be clearer. Their nights are haunted with guilt, fear, and visions they cannot escape. But your nights are becoming filled with rest, healing, and renewed purpose. They are afraid to close their eyes because of what will confront them in their dreams, but you can close your eyes knowing you are protected and surrounded by peace. They live in fear of the truth catching up to them, while you walk boldly because the truth is on your side. This shift is the evidence that what the enemy meant for harm, God has turned for good. What was supposed to break you has become the very thing that built you. The narcissist underestimated the power of pain in the hands of God. They thought the hurt they caused would paralyze you, but instead, it sharpened your vision. They thought rejection would leave you desperate for their approval, but it redirected you toward a higher source of validation. They thought betrayal would destroy your trust forever, but it actually strengthened your discernment and taught you the value of protecting your spirit. Every scar they left on you became a mark of wisdom. Every wound they opened became a place where God poured His healing. And now, instead of walking in brokenness, you walk in strength, carrying lessons that cannot be taken away from you. They cannot comprehend how you survived, let alone how you are thriving. To them, it is unsettling to see the very person they tried to erase now shining brighter than before. This is part of why they are haunted, because they realize their greatest efforts to destroy you failed. Their nightmares remind them of what they did to you, but also of the fact that you are still standing. They wanted you buried, but you grew into something greater than they ever imagined. They wanted you silenced, but your voice carries more power than it ever has. Their greatest fear is not just being exposed for what they are, but being reminded of what you have become without them. Your rise is not simply about moving forward. It is about reclaiming everything they tried to steal. They tried to rob you of confidence, and now you walk with more clarity about your worth than ever before. They tried to rob you of joy, but now you smile freely without their approval. They tried to rob you of hope, but now your faith is unshakable. They tried to rob you of peace, but now you rest, knowing that your life is in God's hands. This is why the contrast between your life and theirs is so striking. While you flourish, they wither. While you rise, they stumble. While you build, they collapse. And while you walk forward with purpose, they are trapped in circles of fear, guilt, and emptiness. Happens when cruelty collides with divine justice. The narcissist cannot celebrate victories for long because those victories were built on lies, manipulation, and harm. But your victories are eternal because they are built on truth, resilience, and God's protection. The very reason their nights are filled with nightmares is the same reason your days are filled with new opportunities. God has shifted the balance, and now everything they used to mock you for has become the source of your strength. They once thought they were ahead while you were behind, but the tables have turned, and it is clear that their downfall has begun at the same time as your rise. The powerful truth they cannot escape. The more they tried to break you, the stronger you became. The more they tried to silence you, the louder your life now speaks. The more they tried to bury you, the deeper your roots grew, and the higher your branches now reach. They cannot outrun this reality, and it terrifies them because their own nightmares remind them of it night after night. Their fall is a shadow that follows them, but your rise is the light that keeps shining, no matter how hard they tried to put it out. There is a power in silence that the narcissist never expected. They thrive on reaction, on seeing you flinch, on hearing you defend yourself, on watching you crumble under the weight of their manipulation. Every argument you entered, every attempt to explain yourself, every tear they witnessed was like fuel for their ego. But the moment you chose silence, the moment you stopped playing their game, their entire foundation began to shake. Your silence became louder than any words you could have spoken. It became proof that you no longer needed to explain yourself, that you no longer craved their validation, that you had stepped into a strength that could not be manipulated. And this silence is what haunts them most. The narcissist does not know what to do when their control no longer works. They are used to pulling strings and watching others dance to their tune. But when you refuse to move, when you refuse to give them the satisfaction of a reaction, it strips them of the power they once held. Your silence becomes a mirror that forces them to look at themselves, something they hate and avoid at all costs. They would rather twist reality than confront the truth about who they are. But your refusal to respond, your decision to stay calm and still, leaves them with nothing to feed on. It is in that emptiness that their conscience starts to stir, and it is in that emptiness that God begins to work. You see, silence is not weakness, it is warfare. It is the refusal to stoop to their level, the choice to let God fight battles that words can never win. It is the decision to step back and allow judgment to unfold without your interference. And this silence carries a weight that disrupts the narcissist's peace. They replay conversations in their head, wondering why you didn't answer. They imagine scenarios, trying to guess what you are thinking. They lose sleep, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't say. Silence leaves them unsettled because they cannot twist it, cannot argue with it, and cannot use it against you. It stands as an unmovable wall that they cannot break through. Your silence is also a statement of power. It tells them that they are no longer the center of your world, that you refuse to be controlled, that you will not waste energy trying to fix what was never your responsibility. For so long, they thrived on your voice, on your attempts to prove yourself, on your explanations. But when you stopped giving them that, you took back your strength. Silence became the language of healing, the sound of your boundaries, the song of your self-respect. And that song rings in their ears louder than any confrontation ever could. They are left haunted, not by your words, but by the absence of them. God uses your silence as a weapon. While they expect chaos, you bring calm. While they expect anger, you bring peace. While they expect you to fight, you simply stand still, and this standing still allows God to show His power. The narcissist's nightmares intensify because your silence reminds them that they have lost their grip. They cannot control what they cannot reach, and they cannot reach you anymore. They sense it, they feel it, and it terrifies them. Their dreams are filled with visions of being ignored, abandoned, and powerless, because that is the reality your silence has created. They once believed they could dictate your every move, but now they are the ones restless, pacing, and searching for answers they will never find. Silence forces them to face themselves. When you no longer engage, the spotlight they avoided is suddenly shining on them. They cannot distract themselves with your reactions anymore. They cannot project their guilt onto you if you refuse to respond. Instead, they are left with their own words, their own actions, their own guilt, and in that silence, the truth becomes deafening. They hear their own cruelty echo back at them. They feel the weight of every lie they told. They are reminded again and again that they are the source of the chaos, not you. Silence strips them of excuses and leaves them standing naked in their own dysfunction. Silence is not just absence, it is presence. It is the presence of strength, the presence of dignity, the presence of God's protection. It unsettles the narcissist more than anger ever could, because they cannot manipulate what does not respond. They cannot twist what does not engage. They cannot win against someone who refuses to fight on their terms. And so your silence becomes their torment, their trigger, their nightmare. It is the proof that you have risen above them, and nothing terrifies them more than realizing they have lost the control they once worshipped. God's fury is not just about anger, it is about justice, about restoring balance where cruelty has tipped the scales. When the narcissist harmed you, they may have believed there